Hi everyone, thank you for coming to this 3D workshop and welcome to this awesome new Decentraland HQ building. I'm Kat, KJWalker on Discord, and I work as a 3D artist. Today we're going to take a look into how to optimize 3D assets for Decentraland. This will allow us to add more interactivity and content to scenes without reducing performance. There are a few ways to go about this, but seeing as the game jam is coming up, let's focus on some of the quickest and most effective ways to do this. What we're going to do is download an open source 3D asset and then edit it in Blender. As we go through that process, we're going to have to change textures and materials, so we might as well personalize it and customize it as we go along. I'll be showing you some online resources as we go through. Firstly, some places where you can get 3D models. I'm scrolling through Sketchfab here at the moment. Most of these websites have a search bar and just put in cyberpunk because it's pretty fun. You can also check out TurboSquid, CG Trader, and Google Poly, which is where the model we're going to be using today is from. Now, this model was created by Alex Safayan, also known as Safi. So, big thank you to you, Alex, for creating this and publishing it online for other people to use in their projects. This is a living room with a couple of game controllers, but I'd like to turn it into something a little bit different. I think it would be cool to use as a base to make a hangout place for gamers. Instead of being part of a living room, I'd like to change the colors and textures to make this model look a little bit more cyberpunk and maybe as if it were a gaming cafe. So there's a lot to be done to get this living room looking like a gaming cafe, so let's download it, put it into Blender, and get started. So the first thing I'll do is come to download. You might automatically go to download in GLTF format, seeing as that's one of the two formats supported by Decentraland, along with the GLB format. However, if you open a GLTF in Blender, you often get a lot of node problems. This is if the model was created in a different 3D software, the orientation may be different, so it then becomes parented to nodes, which you can undo, but it takes quite a long time. A quicker alternative is to download the OBJ, which is what we'll be doing today, and importing that into Blender. So let's open up Blender, which is hiding. Come back! No, it really is hiding. There we go. Okay, so this is a new file. Just going to click on the scene and turn on my shortcut keys so that you can see the buttons that I'm pressing. Okay, so here to the left, you can see the keys. Now first off, let's grab everything and delete it. And now we will import the OBJ that we just downloaded. Personally, I find it quite difficult to navigate through this and to find the files that I'm looking for, so I tend to have them open in a separate folder and pull them in straight away. I have this in an adjacent window. Let's see. Not this one. Here. So if you have it here, you can drag it straight in and it will open up in your search bar. Double click and it will open in Blender. Okay, the first thing I like to do is to give myself an idea of the actual size I have. So let's say we're creating something for one parcel. So let's add a cube whose boundaries are the same size as a parcel. And this will just help us scale and visualize things as we go along. I'm only giving it a height of 6 meters. We could go quite a lot higher with that in one parcel, but it's not necessary for this example. I'm going to remove 2 walls and the ceiling, and now we have a little room that we can use as a basis for our game cafe. I'm going to put this room in a new collection called New and move it in there. Okay, and let's delete this floor plane. And let's have a look at the information that we have at the moment. We've got just over 4,000 triangles in the scene at the moment, and I'd like to fit 4 of these layouts into one parcel. To do that and stay within the triangle limitations, we'll need to reduce the amount of polygons in the scene by about half, and then optimize the textures. It may look like there aren't many different textures and materials, and there aren't actually any textures at all, but there are a lot of materials. Each of these items has its own material. So we'll be going through and mapping all of these to the same image so that it occupies a lot less space. At the moment, the file is using 18 different materials, and we're going to reduce that to 2 textures. Now, the benefit to doing that is, as we're going to be creating a gaming cafe in one parcel, we have a maximum limitation of 10 textures. If we only use 2 to decorate the scene, then another 8 textures can be used for gaming, so to speak. So imagine you're working with a pretty cool developer, and they can set up the screen to work with sprite sheets and animations and go through and kind of play different games, like some of the arcade games that are being made at the moment. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why it's really important to save on resources, because it means you can combine an interesting design with great functionality at the same time. So the first thing we're going to do is remove all the tries that we don't need. So before we do that, let's make our lives a lot easier and delete everything that we have 2 of, because we're going to be modifying objects, so we don't want to modify everything twice. We just want to modify things once, and then we can duplicate them and put them back into place. So I'll do that with the speaker, the can, the game controller, and there we go. Now I'm going to join some of the objects together, because if you look at the collection at the moment, there are a lot of objects. They're not named, so it's a bit chaotic, and I'd rather work with a cleaner scene. So we've got sofa. Before we join the table, let's just pull the legs down a little bit. They are slightly too high. I don't know if you can tell. They are fuzzing just here. I know fuzzing is probably not the technical term, but that's what I like to say when there are 2 faces in the same place. It creates a strange visual effect. So I've just activated the vertex magnet, and I'm going to pull the legs down to the bottom of the table, so there is no more double face. Okay. Now I'm going to start going through and cleaning up some tries. I'm going to start with the sofa, which is quite a good example because it looks very low poly, and it is. If we tab into it, it has 240 triangles, which is pretty good. But if you look underneath, for example, there are faces that we cannot see. And unless we're animating the sofa, it's going to make very little difference whether they're there or not. In fact, the only difference it's going to make is reducing performance. So let's get rid of all the faces that are here at the moment, but that can't be seen. Now, you can see them with the camera here in Blender, but imagine you're an avatar walking through the scene, and you can't crouch down, you can't bend, you can't get into this camera angle. Therefore, anything that you can't see from around this height doesn't necessarily need to be there. I'm going to enable X-ray mode because it will help me see a lot more faces that are hidden away. And if I'm not sure whether I've selected something that I shouldn't have, I'll just tab out of X-ray mode. And if I can see anything selected, then I'll unselect it. And if not, I will just delete it. So, are there any other faces we can get rid of in here? Perhaps down here? Yes. You can get rid of these. This back one probably as well. Let's have a look. Yes, we can get rid of that one as well. And just a few more that are here at the corners. Not the ones from the top, because those will show, but just the ones that are at the back and tucked away out of sight. I think we can get away with the sides as well here. Let's tab out of X-ray mode and take a look. We could do, but I think I will leave the ones in the center. Okay, let's delete this face as well. And this one. Okay. That should do for the sofa. Now let's tab into the table and join it together. And just remove a few faces that are there and don't actually need to be there, like the tops of the table legs and the bottom of the table legs. You could also remove just under the table as well, seeing as your avatar can't crouch down into that position. And we'll do the same with the can of drink. The games console, just removing the bottom faces here and doing the same with the buttons. Okay, let's move on to the wires. Select the bottom faces and remove those also. And the second wire. Great. Now I'm going to remove these planes from the front of the TV here, as they're a bit too close to the surface and they're causing that double face, blurry, fuzzy effect. So let's get rid of those completely. And let's take a look at the table and shelves. We can definitely get rid of the bottom faces of the whole piece of furniture. And the back, not in this case, but maybe some sides. Let's take a look. No, not that one, but yes, the other one. Ah, maybe I already removed it. Nope, there's just a loop cut but no face. Okay, fair enough. Let's remove the back face here, the bottom face here, and the side face here. And now we'll tab in and do the same with these drawers. This one, you'll notice you can only see the front face, so we can remove the rest. This one is also the same. So we'll remove the bottom and side faces. This may seem a little aggressive, and I know if you peer in with the camera you can see those faces, but you can't peer in Decentraland, so don't worry. In fact, we can get rid of this one as well. Let's do the same with this part. And this shelf here, which is more visible, so we won't be able to remove as many parts. Okay, let's quickly tab into the books and remove the bottom faces and back faces. Do the same here. I will leave this one. And just the handle here. Okay, let's take a look at the TV stand. You can see that there is a double face here in the corner, and that is because we are missing a vertex right here in the center. If I select all the vertices, you'll notice there is one missing just here. So we can delete these faces and create that vertice so that it fits together nicely. Okay, let's grab the vertices, subdivide them, and bring it to this height. We'll do the same on this side, subdivide, and bring it to the same height. Okay, now let's make a new face. Another one here. If it starts doing funny things, like this, for example, where I've got 3 vertices selected, and this one is apparently not selected, but it did make a face. Just want to go into Mesh, Clean Up, and Merge by Distance. And now you can see all 4 vertices are selected, because there were probably 2 in very close proximity. Still there. In which case, let's get rid of this face. Okay, let's make another face here. Another here, another here, another here, and one more here. Great. Now we're at 2,200 triangles. So we could duplicate this by 4, but we do need to bear in mind that we still need to add in colliders, and we've removed half of the objects. So we need to remove further triangles. We've already gone through and removed most of the extra triangles. So what I'll focus on now is the speaker, which looks really cool with this foam padding around the edges, but we can make a more low poly version that will be better for our scene and allow us to have the same effect using less resources. It won't look as cool, but small sacrifices. So I'm just modeling a basic object here, trying to get the right proportion because everything seems to be quite neat in this model. And we'll go in and put a loop cut in the top here so that we can inset this face and create this section here. So we'll grab this face, inset, and we'll extrude it inwards and scale it. Okay, now for these sections here, instead of adding cylinders or spheres, we're going to be adding also cylinders, but with a lot less vertices. So when you pull it in, you can change your vertices here. We're going to put in 6 and have hexagonal structures. So let's flip this on the y-axis. And first of all, I'm going to make sure it's as similar as possible in size and proportion to the original, seeing as we're basing the rest of the speaker on this one. So let's squeeze it on the x-axis, bring it backwards. Okay, let's inset this front face. And I'm going to pull it forwards a little bit. Then I'm going to inset it once more. Pull it forwards. And then extrude inwards. And scale it down. Okay, let's take a look at that without the X-ray mode. This definitely needs to be softened, and it's too deep as it is. So let's take a look at this. This could work, but it could do with a little bit of adjustment. Okay, let's add the other cylinder in the middle. Remove the back face so we won't be needing it. Enable X-ray mode. And we'll try and locate it more or less in the center here. Okay, let's pull it to the right location. Now let's move it over to the other speaker and take a look. That should do. Let's just make sure we've removed this extra face here. Okay, and now let's duplicate that and pull it down slightly. And now we have a speaker that's similar, but a lot less poly. This one has 1,000 tries, and this one has 170. So that will allow us to multiply it many times without having to worry too much about the performance of our scene. Okay, the next step is going to be texturing these models. At the moment, they all have individual materials applied to them. If we tab into the sofa, for example, it has orange and desk. The books have also orange and cans. They're reusing some materials, but we're going to aim to reuse all of the materials and map everything to one texture. So I made the texture earlier, as it's not that quick to do, and we could make a whole other workshop about this. Personally, I use Photoshop to put things together, though if you're not a fan of Photoshop, there are some other websites that you can use, like pixelapp.com, which is really good for creating pixel images and controlling the pixel size and ratio, because of course in Decentraland you need to make sure that things are a certain size and ratio. In this image here we'll be working at 512 by 512 pixels, which you could control quite easily here. You can also download GIMP, which is an open source image editor, very similar to Photoshop, perhaps a little less user-friendly, but completely open source. So let me show you quickly what I've done, and that is grab the Genesis texture, which is available in the GitHub of Decentraland. That's open source, like a lot, well, actually everything in Decentraland, which is what makes it cool, amongst many other things. And I've cut up this texture and collaged it just so that it would take up a little less space, and I could fit in a few extra textures. So I found this and this online on a website called FreePic, which is pretty handy. Here is the glitch texture we're going to use, and you can also find a number of textures on textures.com, though if you do a lot of designing you're probably fed up of this site already because it gets used quite often in 3D design. Another great thing to do is to create your own textures using Pascal or Photoshop or GIMP, either hand painting them or by using images and editing images. There are lots of ways to go about it. So you'll notice in this image I've also added a font. Now this font I found on defont.com, which is a great place to look for fonts, especially fonts which are public domain, and that means that you have the right to use them in your projects. Mostly. You should always double check the README that comes with the download, but if you go into more options when you're searching for a font and you check the public domain box, anything that comes up will pretty much be free for use in either personal or commercial projects. Now, the one we're going to use in this project is called 5x5, and it was made by Yeti. And this is a great font to use for a low-res image because each letter is composed of 5 pixels by 5 pixels. So I've actually enlarged it on here, and it maybe takes up a few more pixels than it needs to. but this is a great example you can use. So yeah, they have all kinds of styles, and it can be quite fun and entertaining. Another important thing to bear in mind when you're looking into images and textures is colors, color balance. You can read all about that here, this great website called Movies in Color. And here you can check out some different films and the main color palettes they've used in some of their scenes. Hopefully this will inspire you as to how to create an atmosphere and a, what's the word? Kind of an ambience in your scene. The colors we will be using today will be mostly from that glitch image that I showed you earlier. But if you want to add extra colors to that palette, a good place to look is color.adobe. You can type in any color that comes to mind. For example, neon. And it will show you a variety of different palettes of 5 colors with neons. You could put in pretty much any word related to a color and you'd get a series of palettes come up. And a lot of them are from photos, which is very useful. Another great site is colors.co with 2 O's. This is great fun because it kind of makes creating your color palettes a game. You click start the generator and you are a color nerd like me. You can just sit here and press spacebar over and over again until you find a color that you like this one, and then you can lock it. Keep looking for different colors, find another one you like, and so forth until you find a palette that feels just about right for your scene. Let's go with this one. You can also drag in an image and it will show you the different tones in that image. Let me show you an example. If I pull in this image, for example, which is a texture used in a previous game jam, you can drag this around and see different texture swatches and colors. So for example, if there's a movie that you really like, you could grab a screenshot and pull it in here and see what kind of colors they're using and how they're creating those effects and how you can reproduce that. So let's go back to Photoshop. So that's how I've put this together. It's basically a collage of the Genesis texture, this one which was downloaded from Freepik, and this one which was also downloaded from Freepik, and this font by Yeti. I've saved this as a PNG file, and I've also created a JPEG file with a couple of modifications. These. And what these do is this main black blocks out everything that I want to have 0 emission. So this is going to tell the computer that the only things that I want to emit light are the glitch screen and the word playroom. And I've also just put another layer of black at 50% opacity on top to dim it down a little bit, as the glow can be quite bright. So let's close this and we'll go into shading and create a new texture into which we will drag those images that we created. So first off, we've got our PNG. me show you what we're doing here. So our PNG is this one, and we're going to connect color with color into a principled BSDF node, alpha with alpha. Then we're going to pull in the JPEG that's got our emission information on it and connect color with emission. I'm also going to lower the specularity and increase the roughness, as that makes the colors pop a little bit more. Okay, so that's the material that we're going to be using for the whole scene. This counts as one material and two textures in your scene for developers. So let's close these and we'll get to mapping these objects to our new texture map. So let's grab the sofa and assign the new material to it. We'll go to viewport view, open up the glitch texture here, unwrap this, and quickly map it onto here. I'll do this quite quickly as I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you all know how to do this. So let's change table to new, assign, unwrap, grab, scale down. Let's make this a slightly different gray. Let's say this one. Let's do the same with the table here and the shelves. We'll assign the new material, unwrap, and project it all down to a lighter green. Let's try this one. Now, the reason it's only showing on one of the materials is because materials can only be changed on one object at a time. So we have correctly mapped everything onto the same place, but it's only showing up because we'll need to change the material to new on each of these separate items. So you can do that quite quickly. We'll remap this because it missed the process, and we'll make it a little bit darker just to add some contrast. Let's change this to new. We'll change this to new. Change this also to new. Unwrap. And map to that same darker grey, which I think was this one. And we'll do the same with this one here. Unwrap it, assign the new material, and put it on a slightly darker grey. Now let's grab the handles and just for fun, because this is for the metaverse, let's make them emissive, because glowing handles is just a bit more fun than not glowing handles. So let's have a pink glowing handle, and we'll do the same here. Just pull it down to the pink. Remember, this is in the emissive section, so this will show up as emitting this pink light as well as being pink in color. Okay, that's the handles done. Let's make the cables also glow. We'll make this one a nice blue. And we'll make the other one either a pink or a purple. Let's go with a purple, so you've got some pink already. Let's go with a pinky purple. Okay, let's grab the can. We will unwrap it with a cylinder projection. Sorry, probably a cube projection. Okay, and we'll assign the new material, scale it down like this so it has the pattern on it. And let's just change the top here to be a different tone. This is showing up as the old material because it's still assigned to cans rather than new. Now we're going to assign it to new, and we're just going to make it a little bit darker so that you can see where the mechanism is to open it. Now let's quickly UV map the controller, and we'll set it to the new material, scale it down and make it a lighter grey. Now let's go through and grab the buttons. We'll make this one pink, this one we'll make blue, and we'll make these two green. Cool. Now we've just got the speaker, the TV, and the books. I would probably normally spend more time deciding which color to put in which area, but I think that's quite a personal and subjective process, so I will not kind of worry you with my personal opinions, because I think it's better if everyone does what they see is best for their project, stylistically and genre-wise and everything. So for now, we're just gonna make things dark and cyberpunky and glowy, because that usually works. Let's assign new material to the TV. Unwrap it, and we'll pull this over to the black. Make sure the right materials are assigned. Okay, for the front of the screen, we're going to use the glitch texture. So we'll project from view, and we'll move it over here. Great. Now that this is textured, we can go back in and add our duplicated items that we removed before. So we've got the speaker, the game controller, just set the origin to geometry, and we'll rotate that minus 90 degrees. Okay, we'll have another can of drink. And we'll quickly map these books. Change this to new, and we'll just set a plain color for this one so it's not too repetitive. Let's go with this. Okay, and we'll grab the DVD material and assign it to new also. Make sure these are centered. Okay, all good. So now that we've got the base of our scene together, for simplicity, I'm going to join it all together. And before doing that, I would recommend you grab all of this and you put it in its own little collection called backup, or you save a copy or something, just in case you're moving things and maybe you lose a wire or a can or whatever. But before I join things, I'm just going to give a little bit of breathing space between the objects, because for me personally it feels a little bit cramped. So let's grab all of this except the wires and pull it back. There we go. Okay, now we'll join it together and we'll make sure everything's set to flat shading. Okay, let's bring back, oh, by the way, we're at 1,000, just under 1,900 tries, so all good. Let's bring back our scene. And let's move this into one of the corners here. Okay, so let's create a bit of an environment for people to play in. Let's make this a large glitch floor. A wall, sorry. This can be just black. And on the floor, I'm just going to show you a quick trick for you to be able to have a seamless pattern on quite a large size without it being pixelated. So let's subdivide this and again, and again. And we're going to map all of it to here. So because this is more rectangular than square, and these are more square than rectangular, we're going to turn these into rectangles by dissolving faces. And we're going to go through and do that individually with each pair of quads. Okay, now we're going to map each one light map pack, or we can project from view. It's probably going to be more useful for us in this case. Let's go with bounds. So what I'm doing with this is creating the same tile over and over again, right? You project from view, bounds, you project from view, bounds, over and over again, so that I can then grab those faces and adjust them on the UV map to create something that looks nearly seamless. So now let's grab all of them on here, and we can quite quickly map them. Modify the size a little bit and leave quite large margins. And yeah, we've got a nice seamless textured floor. Let's add a little bit of text. And we'll put playroom on here, because that will be the name of our scene. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to mirror this on Y and then on X. Okay, and it's looking kind of funny. That's because when we made the shader, we didn't change the blend mode from opaque to alpha clip. And now it's looking alright. So let's bring that back here. And we'll just add in a few basic colliders. One for the sofa. You can go in and control loop it to give some more information if you want, so that your avatar can come and sit down when we can sit down. Okay, so there's our sofa collider. Let's add in a collider for the table. Make sure it's at the right height. That will do. And one more over here. Which will make slightly wider because of this shelf here. Great, now let's scale this up on the z-axis a bit more than the others, and we'll join the colliders together. Control A all transforms, and we'll call this cube underscore collider. Now I'm going to grab the gaming scene and apply a mirror modifier to it on both the x and the y axes, and do the same thing with the collider. Add a modifier, mirror x and y. Now I'm going to duplicate this cube scene and call it scene underscore collider. Delete the ground floor because that's already provided by the client. There we go. And I'm going to apply a modifier to this, solidify modifier, so that it's a collider in both directions. I'm also going to add a solidify modifier to the room itself so you can see it from both directions. And I'm going to grab everything, Control A, all transforms, and the whole scene is just over 8,000 tries. And we're going to export it and then run a magic command to remove any extra materials, and then we will be ready. So let's put this in Playroom, Models, and we'll call it Playroom. Remember, export settings include selected objects, transform Y up, geometry apply modifiers, UVs, normals, tangents, no vertex colors, but yes to materials, and no animation in this case. And we're exporting as a GLB. And now let's open that up in the terminal. That's not the terminal. And we will go to the Playroom scene folder and take a look. Whilst that's loading, let me pull this up on the screen. This is the command we're going to run next, which is going to extract any unnecessary textures from the scene. Okay. So this is the scene that we've put together, and yeah, I think if you gave this to a coder or a developer, they'd be able to do some fun things with it. So let's just run this little code to remove extra materials. And to do that, we want to add this magic.sh file into our models folder of the scene folder. In the terminal, we want to navigate to that, to the models folder within the scene folder. So let's come out of here, and then we'll cd to models, and in models we'll run the same command that you can see here. Let me know if you can't see it right on the screen, and we can put that up in the Discord. If not, I'm sure you can find it on the docs or in the GitHub repo. And this does magic, and what it will do is create a new folder inside the models folder called out, and this contains a clean GLB plus the 2 textures that we used for it. So if you'd want to create a backup, but then you could delete this file and everything else and just keep these 3 in your models file. So yeah, that was how we went from living room to game cafe within the try limitations. And there's a lot more that could be done to that scene if we had the time to do it. So I hope that was of help to you, and please feel free to get in touch if I can help. You can usually find me on Discord. Anyways, thank you for listening, and thank you again so much for coming and for being a part of this. Bye everyone.